Welcome to today's in-depth examination of a tectonic change that is currently upending the fundamental foundations of professional tennis. We are broadcasting at a time when a pure cultural phenomenon, rather than merely forehands and backhands, is challenging the Women's Tennis Association's established hierarchy. You might instantly think of Coco Gauff, the American prodigy who won a Grand Slam championship and won the hearts of millions of people, if I were to ask you right now who the most well-known player on the WTA Tour is. Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1 and Belarusian powerhouse, comes to mind. Her enormous worldwide brand is the only thing that can equal her intensity on the court. You may even turn to IG SWAT, the strategic whiz who has dominated the rankings like a vice. The titans in the contemporary game are these. They are the athletes who command million-dollar endorsements and primetime broadcast slots, the faces on billboards, and the big names that tournament administrators envision. But what if I told you that, according to some of the most reputable experts in the sport, Gauff is not currently the biggest attraction in women's tennis, the player driving unprecedented crowd surges and complete chaos worldwide? What if I told you that Sabalenka isn't it? We're here today to discuss a startling discovery that was just verified by former ADP touring pros on the popular Nothing Major podcast. The player who has received formal recognition as an incredible rock star. Alexandra Eala, a 20-year-old Filipina sensation, is the player who is rewriting the rules of audience involvement on her own. Yes, that is what you heard. American tennis legends Steve Johnson, Sam Querrey, and John claim that Alexandra Eala, a player who a year ago was barely in the top 100 and struggling through the challenger circuit, is now the most captivating presence on the circuit. It has been said that the enthusiasm surrounding Eala is mind-blowing, ridiculous, and absolutely crazy. Every continent she travels to, from the Australian Open in Melbourne to the Doha and Dubai Championships in the Middle East, has standing room-only crowds. Rather than the customarily courteous applause of a tennis gallery, it is a degree of intensity that the sport has seldom seen, evoking analogies to the most passionate football crowds. We must examine the statistics, the quotations, and the unquestionable truth of what is occurring in stadiums at the moment if we are to really comprehend the scope of the narrative. We are discussing how Eala's pre-tournament press conferences drew over 171,000 internet viewers, completely surpassing the 29,000 who watched Coco Gauff and Carlos Alcaraz and vastly outstripping the 9,000 who watched Aryna Sabalenka. Because the outdoor courts are unable to accommodate the thousands of fervent Filipino fans who travel from far and wide to see their national hero, tournament organizers were forced to change their schedule and move a player currently ranked 31st in the world onto center courts and second-tier stadiums. When asked if she was the biggest draw, Steve Johnson said without hesitation that she is having a bigger impact than any rising star in recent memory. John Iser highlighted the enormous, unrealized potential of the Philippine market, a group that is currently flooding the tennis scene with an unstoppable, contagious zeal. This is more than just a tale of a gifted teenage athlete finding her footing. This is a sociological phenomenon. It is a tale about representation, the Filipino people's global diaspora, and how one person can become a symbol of pride in their country on a global scale. Eala's incredible run to the Miami Open semifinals last year, where she defeated several Grand Slam champions, served as the impetus for her recent meteoric climb, which has resulted in a career-high ranking and a recent, much-reported matchup with Coco Gauff in Dubai. Even the American superstar had to stop, grab the microphone, and expressly thank Eala for introducing a whole new audience to the sport, even if Gauff won that specific match. The message was obvious, the stands were full, and the atmosphere was electrifying. Now that Alexandra Eala is here, the world is joining her. Let's put what it means to be a draw in professional tennis into perspective. In the past, the sport has depended on rivalries and powerful individuals to boost television ratings and ticket sales. We recall the contrast between John McEnroe's fiery temperament and Bjorn Borg's cold precision. We recall Chris Evert and Martina Navratilovan's baseline fights, a rivalry that went beyond sports and encapsulated the spirit of the 1970s and 1980s. We saw Andre Agassi's unquestionable box business success, as his brightly colored clothes and defiant demeanor attracted a whole new, younger crowd to Wimbledon and Flushing Meadows. Naturally, we also had the time of Serena Williams, a transcendent generational icon whose mere attendance at a tournament ensured sold-out venues, broke attendance records, and garnered a degree of widespread media attention that is unattainable for most sports. Serena was more than just a star at tennis. She was a worldwide phenomenon. The Women's Tennis Association has been in a transitional phase, looking for the next gravitational force to anchor the circuit, since Serena's departure from the sport. Magnificent champions have risen to the occasion. A lovely classical game was introduced by Ashley Barty prior to her early retirement. IG Swiatek has set an incredible benchmark for quality. Unquestionable charisma and explosive power have been delivered by Aryna Sabalenka. The inspirational story of a young prodigy realizing her enormous potential on the biggest stages is provided by Coco Gauff. However, despite this amazing group of talent, Alexandra Eala's work is essentially different in both its nature and its source. There is typically a rigid process involved in becoming the greatest draw in tennis. A Grand Slam is yours. You make it to the rankings top 5. You get significant corporate sponsorships. Then come the enormous throngs from all over the world. The ultimate sustained championship achievement is what leads to the popularity. This paradigm is being totally reversed by Alexandra Eala. As of right now, she is rated 31st worldwide. She hasn't yet taken home a Grand Slam singles championship. In many respects, she is still honing her skills and developing at the top level of the WTA Tour. However, her audience is outstripping that of the multi-slam champions. At competitions across the Americas, Australia, and the Middle East, she is evoking a regional Super Bowl vibe. This phenomena compels us to consider important issues regarding the current state of sports fandom. Why would a fan purchase a ticket, paint their face, wave a flag, and yell at the top of their lungs? Alexandra Eala is more than just an athlete to the Filipino diaspora. On a global scale, she is a living, breathing embodiment of their identity, resiliency, and goals. The Philippines has a strong, ardent enthusiasm for sports and has historically been the best at basketball and boxing. Historically, tennis has been a specialized sport, but Eala has solved the puzzle on its own and turned a nation of more than 100 million people and its sizable international expat population into ardent tennis fans. It's astounding how much support there is. She carries the weight and the unshakable vocal support of an entire country when she takes the court. This is the main point of contention raised by Sam Querrey, John Nah, and Steve Johnson. They are realizing that in 2026, a player's star power is no longer just determined by the numbers next to their name on the ranking machine. It is determined by the atmosphere in the stadium, the interaction on the internet, and the indisputable physical energy that permeates the stadium when a particular player picks up their racket. In order to fully understand the significance of this moment, we must first examine the precise exchange that occurred on episode 151 of the Nothing Major podcast, which was published on February 23, 2026. During their weekly wrap-up, the hosts talked about Jessica Pegula's clinical victory, Sebastian Cord's wins, and Carlos Alcaraz's unstoppable form. However, Sam Querrey's regular piece, which he lovingly referred to as Kayer's Query, was the most explosive and revealing part of the entire 44-minute broadcast. A rhetorical grenade was thrown into the discussion by Querrey. He asked his co-hosts, and I quote, "My question to you guys is on the women's side, Alexandra Eala, is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now in the world? Is she bigger than Sabalenka? Is she bigger than Coco?" The framing of this question is vital. Querrey did not ask if she was the best player. He asked if she was the biggest draw in the business of professional sports. Being the biggest draw is the ultimate metric of commercial success. It dictates television contracts, sponsorship valuations, and the financial health of the tournaments themselves. The response from Steve Johnson was instantaneous and utterly unequivocal. "Dude, it's crazy," Johnson replied. He immediately drew a parallel to the men's tour, referencing the explosive popularity of Brazilian teenager Joel Fana in Miami the previous year, whose matches became legendary for the sheer volume and passion of the Brazilian fans, eventually forcing tournament organizers to move his matches to larger stadiums simply for safety and crowd control. But Johnson went further. He stated that Eala's impact is even larger than the phono effect. Every court in Australia, standing room only. Then in Dubai, standing room only. It's insane. The crowds she's getting right now all over the world are insane. Johnson explicitly noted how quickly her profile has metamorphosed. He reminded the listeners that prior to the Miami Open in 2025, she was largely unknown to the general global tennis public. But now, in his own words, she is an absolute rock star. He detailed how this star power is actively forcing the hands of tournament directors. Regardless of her ranking, which sits outside the prestigious top 10, tournaments are now compelled to place her on center court, or at the very least the second biggest show court, because the alternative is a logistical nightmare of overflowing crowds and blocked walkways. John Isna chimed in to validate Johnson's claims, noting the Doha crowds were insane for her last week. Insane. But Iser offered the crucial analytical perspective. He identified the engine driving this unprecedented phenomenon. "It's a huge market," explained. "I think a lot of people underestimated how big that market is. They finally have a star on the women's side of the game. There are some huge markets with untapped potential. They just need players to emerge and make a name for themselves." Iser's analysis hits the nail squarely on the head. The tennis world, historically centered in Europe, North America, and Australia, has frequently struggled to fully capture and monetize the vast populations of Southeast Asia. While players like Len of China and Kaishikori of Japan opened massive doors in their respective nations, the Philippines remained largely untouched by tennis fever. The country has an estimated population of over 115 million people, with an additional 10 million or more living overseas. This global network is renowned for its intense national pride and its deep-seated desire to support its compatriots achieving success on the world stage. To understand why Alexandra Eala is drawing crowds that dwarf those of multiple Grand Slam champions, we must delve into the sociology of this fanbase. When a Filipino athlete begins to make waves internationally, it is not merely a sporting event. It becomes a national movement. We have seen this historically with boxing legend Manny Pacquiao. Alexandra Eala is tapping into that exact same vein of cultural electricity. When she steps onto a court in Melbourne for the Australian Open, she is not just a tennis player competing in a first-round match. She is representing the thousands of Filipino nurses, engineers, hospitality workers, and students who have built lives in Australia. For them, purchasing a ground pass to the Australian Open to watch her play is an act of patriotism. It is a chance to wave the red, white, blue, and yellow flag with the golden sun and stars. It is an opportunity to sing chants, to scream in Tagalog, and to create an atmosphere of home in a foreign land. This explains the staggering statistics we are witnessing. Consider the digital footprint. A routine pre-tournament press conference featuring Alexandra Eala drew an astonishing 171,000 online viewers. Let that number sink in. For a player to draw 171,000 live viewers to a press conference is unheard of. To put it into stark perspective, during that same tournament, joint press conferences for global megastars like Carlos Alcaraz and Coco Gauff drew roughly 29,000 viewers. Aryna Sabalenka, the world number one, drew approximately 9,000. These numbers are not just a quirk of the algorithm. They are a glaring, undeniable metric of raw, passionate engagement. The Filipino fans are not passive consumers of tennis. They are highly active, digitally coordinated, and fiercely loyal. They organize on social media. They coordinate travel plans. They ensure that every venue Eala visits feels like a home tie. When Steve Johnson calls it the biggest draw in the world, he is recognizing that while Sabalenka and Gauff have massive established global brands, Eala has mobilized an army. Every rock star has an origin story. A moment when they step out of the shadows and into the blinding glare of the spotlight. For Alexandra Eala, that moment occurred precisely 12 months ago at the 2025 Miami Open. She was just 19 years old, ranked number 140 in the world, grinding away on the grueling ITF circuit. However, the tournament organizers granted her a main draw wild card. What followed was nothing short of a miracle. Eala did not just participate. She dismantled the established order. First, she faced Elena Ostapenko, the fiery 2017 French Open champion. Eala absorbed the pace, countered with her own precise placement, and secured a stunning upset. Then she faced Madison Keys, the incredibly powerful American. Once again, the teenager from the Philippines found a way to win. But the true crescendo of her Miami miracle came when she faced the ultimate test, Iga Swiatek. Facing Swiatek on a hard court is one of the most daunting tasks in professional sports. Yet Eala, fueled by the massive roaring crowds in Miami who had quickly adopted her as their darling, played the match of her life, securing a victory that instantly changed the trajectory of her life. Miami was the catalyst. It propelled her into the top 100. It granted her direct entry into the Grand Slams. She reached her maiden WTA final on the grass courts of Eastbourne. She secured her first main draw Grand Slam victory at the US Open, becoming the first Filipina in history to achieve such a feat. She finished the 2025 season inside the top 50, setting the stage for the absolute madness that has defined her 2026 campaign. If 2025 was the year of the breakthrough, 2026 is the year of the coronation. Her arrival in Melbourne highlighted the logistical challenges her popularity is now creating. When she was scheduled to play her first round match on Court 6, it resulted in a situation that tournament directors dread. Court 6 is a modest outside court designed for early round matches. It simply could not handle the sheer volume of humanity that descended upon it. Reports from the grounds described a massive surge of Filipino fans, creating a severe bottleneck. The walkways were jammed. Thousands of supporters were stranded outside the court, completely unable to gain entry despite having arrived hours early. It was a physical manifestation of Steve Johnson's comments. The infrastructure of the tournament was buckling under the weight of her star power. This phenomenon only intensified as the tour moved to the Middle East. The region boasts one of the highest concentrations of overseas Filipino workers in the world. When Eala arrived for the Qatar Total Energies Open in Doha, The atmosphere was instantly electric. John is not exaggerating when he called the crowds completely crazy. The stands were packed to the brim. The noise level was deafening. And every point she won was greeted with a roar that sounded more like a World Cup final than a tennis match. But it was at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships where Eala truly solidified her status. Fueled once again by immense passionate crowds, Eala went on a brilliant run. She dispatched Hailey Baptiste, secured a massive victory over the talented Italian Jasmine Paolini, and overcame the veteran Sari. With every victory, her ranking climbed higher, eventually pushing her to a new career high of world number 31. This phenomenal run in Dubai set the stage for a quarterfinal showdown that the entire tennis world circled on their calendars. Alexandra Eala versus Coco Gauff. The quarterfinal match in Dubai between Alexandra Eala and Coco Gauff was more than just a tennis match. It was a fascinating collision of two completely different paradigms of tennis stardom. On one side of the net stood Coco Gauff. Gauff is the archetypal modern American superstar. She has the Grand Slam pedigree, possessing immense athleticism, a terrifying backhand, and the polished media-savvy persona of an athlete who has been groomed for greatness her entire life. On the other side stood Alexandra Eala, the ultimate underdog story turned global phenomenon. She entered the match as the clear underdog in terms of ranking and experience, but she possessed an intangible advantage: the crowd. Despite the match taking place in the United Arab Emirates, the stadium belonged to Eala. Gauff, currently ranked world number 4, is accustomed to having the crowd squarely in her corner. But on this night, she was the antagonist in the eyes of the thousands of passionate Filipino fans. The match itself was a masterclass from the American Gauff. Perhaps sensing the danger of letting the crowd get deeply involved, came out with a level of focused intensity that was breathtaking. She broke Eala's serve in the very first game and ruthlessly executed her tactical game plan, particularly targeting Eala's forehand wing. Gauff won the first 10 games of the match consecutively. Eala never stopped fighting, but Gauff's lead was insurmountable. The final score was 6-love, 6-2 in favor of the American. However, the most significant moment of the evening did not occur during the play. It occurred during the post-match on-court interview. This is where the true grace and intelligence of Coco Gauff shone through. Gauff, holding the microphone in the center of the stadium, looked out at a crowd that had actively rooted against her. Instead of expressing frustration, she confronted it with absolute class. "Thank you guys for coming out here," Gauff began. "I know you are mostly supporting Alex, but I have to say it's great to be on a crowded court. Also, I'd like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it. I think it's great." This was a profound moment. Coco Gauff, one of the most famous athletes on the planet, explicitly recognizing that Alexandra Eala is fundamentally expanding the audience of professional tennis. When a player like Gauff validates the crowd dynamic in such a public manner, it cements the narrative. It is no longer just a podcast debate. It is an undeniable reality. It fully appreciates the claim that Eala is a bigger draw than Aryna Sabalenka and Coco Gauff. We must deeply analyze what Sabalenka and Gauff represent. Aryna Sabalenka is the apex predator of the WTA Tour. Her serve is a weapon of mass destruction, and her ground strokes are hit with a ferocity that few women can match. Sabalenka is a massive draw because people love the spectacle of raw power. However, her appeal is largely rooted in the traditional tennis fanbase. She commands respect, awe, and admiration, but she does not inspire the visceral flag-waving nationalistic fervor that commands. Coco Gauff is the golden child of American tennis. She draws massive crowds, particularly in the United States, bringing in a younger demographic who follow her on social media. She is a phenomenal ambassador for the sport. But what Eala is doing is entirely different. Eala is not just attracting tennis fans. She is converting non-tennis fans into rabbit ticket-buying superfans simply by virtue of her nationality and her success. If you put Aryna Sabalenka on a court in Dubai against a mid-ranked player, the stadium will be comfortably full.